Hello, I'm Stephen Garvey, founder, leader of National Citizens Alliance, NCA. I would like to welcome you here tonight for this special presentation statement on the turn of events in Halifax, Nova Scotia. One of our coordinators received a telephone call today from the Halifax Lions Club stating that they are withdrawing our contract to hold the National Citizens Alliance public discussion on mass immigration on November 24th in Halifax. We are very disappointed to get this news, and we're very concerned at this withdrawal and others that are occurring. And we know National Citizens Alliance is not the only organization that's being censored, politically censored. Um, as most people know, Faith Goldie, Kevin Johnson were face similar obstacles. So we're very concerned at what is going on in Canada in terms of free speech. This is attack on free speech, and it impacts every Canadian. Without free speech, we have nothing. We have nothing except tyranny. And that's the path we're under. And we saw this with M103, E411, the E petition as well, which is seeking to silence Canadians from speaking about a particular ideology. This is so anti-Western, anti-free speech, the culture in this country. Anyone who goes against the status quo, the mainstream, the globalist agenda that's being imposed on us are vilified, are censored. And recently, National Citizens Alliance was censored from GoFundMe. Can you believe that? And what's going on here is a form of fascism. Mistake not. There are fascist elements in Canada that are tied to political entities. This is very clear. They are tied to political entities. They are funded by globalists like George Soros. They are operating in Canada. They are operating in Canada. And this is just another example of that. So what happened with this Lions Club, apparently they've received 70 or so emails and phone calls today. We don't know what sources. They could have been just 5 people. They were threatening to protest the November 24th public discussion. And then the Lions Club directors met, and they caved in to what we view as fascism. This is all wrong. This is all wrong, everyone. They should have taken their names and numbers, given us their names and numbers, so we could address any concerns they have. Instead, they allowed political censorship. Instead, they dishonored a contract to use their venue. And I'm going to bring up some quotes here. I want to put this in context so everyone understands. Just give me a second here. This is a quote. This is a quote by Winston Churchill. The fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists. Winston Churchill. And we all know Winston Churchill helped lead the opposition, the resistance, and ultimate victory over fascism coming out of Germany. And he says the fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists. And that's exactly what we have in Canada, in the US, and in parts of Europe. This is all doublespeak. The anti-fascists in our society are the real fascists. They are against freedom. They are against democracy. They are against anyone who goes against their viewpoints. And we condemn them. National Citizens Alliance condemns these anti-fascist elements in Canada, who are likely being funded by globalist organizations and individuals like George Soros. They are in Canada. I'm going to bring up another quote here that's relevant to this. What's his name? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Just bear with me. Thank you. This is a quote by George Orwell. We posted it today, but he echoed what Winston Churchill said. Fascism is coming. Probably a slimely anglicized form of fascism with cultured policemen instead of Nazi guerrillas, and the lion and unicorn instead of the swastika. So you see two great Western minds warning of the fascism that we have in our country. And then I want to share this other quote here. This quote is important here. This is another quote by George Orwell, and it's a warning to the people. He says, quote, "A people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices. A people that elect corrupt politicians, imposters, thieves, and traitors are not victims, but accomplices." And this quote here, everyone, this is very important. This quote here from George Orwell. "The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history." The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. And that's exactly what we see going on in Canada with this globalist agenda, the mass immigration, the extreme multiculturalism. The history of our people are being undermined with a myth, fake history, also known as Canadians. Canadians are all immigrants. Our history is made up of immigrants, and that's not the truth. Canada's history started with the settlers and pioneers from Europe coming over, and then Indigenous Canadians living off the land and creating the country we have. These weren't immigrants that came over, they were settlers and pioneers. So, the most effective way to destroy a people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of the history. And that's what's going on. They're trying to deny the bicultural heritage of Canada through a phony, fake, extreme multicultural heritage agenda. That's what's going on. And we can see that through the mass immigration. They are literally obliterating Euro Canadians. Euro Canadians are quickly moving into a minority. They're basically going to be stamped out if this agenda continues. And the important point about what happened in Halifax today, shutting down the venue, just over a week ago, we had Remembrance Day. And what this Lions Club board decided was completely disrespectful and dishonorable to Canadian veterans that sacrificed their lives for our freedom. That's the real tragedy here. By caving into some emails and phone calls, they give up freedom of expression. Yet our veterans sacrificed their lives for our freedom. This is wrong. This is the twisted, weak society we are amongst right now. Yet in the past, our veterans literally gave up their lives for the freedoms, which now some Canadians are quick to push to the gutter. This is wrong. This is a real insult to Canadian veterans, this political censorship. I'm going to play a couple of videos now to honor our veterans and their sacrifice for our freedoms. This is from the Field of Crosses on November 11th in Calgary. My apologies there. I'm going to correct the audio settings for that so you can hear it.
This is my great uncle, Charlie Eastland. He was a Calgary fella. He signed up in 1960 and served throughout the rest of the war. He was a company runner, which was a pretty dangerous thing in those days. They had an average lifespan of but Charlie beat the odds. And in the last 100 days of the war, when we did some of our worst fighting, Charlie was there at the very first battle of the last 100 days, the Battle of Amiens. And it was at Amiens, after 3 days of hard fighting, the Canadians broke through, but Charlie received the Military Medal, which was the highest award an enlisted man could receive at the time. Charlie made it all the way through another 6 weeks. But then the Battle of Canal du Nord began on the morning of September the 27th, 1918. Charlie's regiment went into action against a position at Quarry Wood. At Quarry Wood, they faced the enemy guns. And at 5:50 in the morning when the attack began, 1,000 men stood up and they charged the guns at Quarry Wood. Between 5:50 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the first 10 minutes when the enemy machine guns opened up and raked the field, over 100 men went down. And one of them was Charlie Eastland. But we never forget Charlie. He's been an important part of my family for 100 years now. And we have his picture up and we remember him every November the 11th. This is our face of remembrance for my family.
Yeah. There you have it. So mistake not, the attacks on freedom of speech, like occurred at the Lions Club in Halifax today, is an attack on what our veterans fought for, the freedoms they sacrificed their lives for. We need to rethink what's going on in Canada now. The political correctness, the fascist elements in our society that are silencing free speech, that are intimidating, that are threatening Canadians, that are creating a culture of silence. This is wrong, and National Citizens Alliance stands fully in opposition. We will fight these fascists until they are gone from Canada. And we have a policy to deal with these fascists. And we must have a policy. There's no place for fascists in Canada. And this policy is what we call the ban on radical extreme ideology. And if you go down here, we talk specifically about the fascist thugs in Halifax and other parts of the country. And I quote, another example is the KKK and Nazi-like groups that support white supremacy and fascism, and left-wing fascist groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. All these groups thrive off conflict, division, violence, and racism, and they have no place in our society. These groups should be exposed in an objective, transparent manner, and if they violate our liberties and civil rights, they need to be held accountable through Canadian human rights violations and, if relevant, civil and criminal prosecution. And that's our commitment to the Canadian people. We will apply the fullest extent of Canadian law against these fascist groups. The fullest extent. And we call on organizations, private enterprise, nonprofit groups, charities, churches to not succumb to the threats, harassments of these fascist groups. When you submit to them, you're only encouraging them to do more. We encourage you to remember of our veterans who sacrificed their lives for our freedoms. Don't be so quick to dismiss our freedoms over a few emails or phone calls. Don't be so quick. Remember our veterans. They gave their lives for what our freedoms that we are losing today. And I will add further that National Citizens Alliance is working on a new venue for the November 24th public discussion on mass immigration in Halifax, and we will be notifying the media and public as soon as possible, as soon as we have a venue secured. If this message today resonates with you, please share it so we can inform and awaken other Canadians on this important issue. Thank you for joining me.